A single dad, Jake Thompson, a war veteran, joins boot camp despite already serving years ago. Younger recruits mock him for being older, slower, and a dad instead of a real soldier. His quiet strength, humility, and discipline contrast with their arrogance. Flashbacks of his little daughter, Ellie, at home, and the sacrifices he makes. He writes letters to her, motivating himself to push harder in training. Recruits begin to notice his resilience but still laugh at his age. During an intense drill, Jake collapses from exhaustion. Recruits jeer, calling him old man, but he gets back up, finishing stronger than most. A rival recruit begins to grudgingly respect him. Jake Thompson never thought he would be standing in a boot camp yard again. Not after years of service, not after raising his little girl alone, not after burying friends who never came home. But life has a strange way of testing the limits of the human spirit, and here he was, 37 years old, hair touched with gray at the temples, eyes heavy with memory but sharp as steel, standing among boys and girls young enough to be his nieces and nephews, some with cocky smiles, some with nervous eyes, all of them staring at him like he was an intruder in their world of fresh beginnings. And when the drill sergeant's voice cut through the damp morning air, announcing their 5-mile run across mud and gravel, the whispers and snickers began, because in their eyes Jake was not a recruit. He was an old man trying to chase youth that had already left him behind, a single dad clinging to something he no longer belonged to, and the cruelest among them wasted no time, one nudging his friend and saying, "What's this, boot camp or retirement practice?" While another laughed, "Bet he won't make it past mile 1. He should be at home changing diapers." Jake heard it all, every word carried on the wind like little arrows meant to pierce pride. But Jake was not made of thin paper pride anymore. He was forged from years of hardship, loss, and the unbreakable bond with a daughter who looked at him like a hero. And he remembered her voice at the bus station, tiny hands clutching his sleeve, tear-filled eyes pleading, "Daddy, don't give up, be my hero." And that memory was more powerful than any insult. So he ran, not fast, not flashy, not competing with the ones who sprinted ahead to show off, but steady, measured, his breathing deep, his knees aching with every stride yet refusing to falter, because compared to nights on patrol overseas carrying gear heavier than his own body weight, compared to hunger and heat and the sharp edge of war, this was only mud and rain, this was child's play. And mile after mile he kept moving while laughter rang behind him. "Keep up, Grandpa, single dads can't hang." But one by one those young voices started to falter as their bodies burned, their lungs cried for air, their arrogance met reality, and Jake, the man they mocked, passed them without a glance, his boots pounding steady, his shirt soaked in sweat, his face calm in the storm. And when the finish line appeared he crossed it upright, not first, not last, but steady like a drum beat, a rhythm that would not break. And as some recruits collapsed in exhaustion he stood tall, chest rising and falling with the discipline of a man who had known worse pain and had carried heavier burdens. Yet the mocking did not stop, not that night in the barracks when the lights flickered and the air was filled with chatter, laughter, the sharp smell of boots polish, and one voice cutting through the noise, "Bet your kid's crying for you right now, old man, should have stayed home, Dad," followed by snickers and chuckles. But Jake sat quietly on his bunk, polishing his boots in slow, methodical strokes, not rising to their bait, because war had taught him patience, fatherhood had taught him silence, and pain had taught him dignity, so he ignored them. Though when the laughter finally died and the room sank into darkness, he reached into his breast pocket and pulled out the folded crayon drawing Ellie had made, a stick figure soldier holding a little girl's hand, with the words "My daddy is strong" written in uneven, colorful letters, and the sight of it in the dim glow of the barracks light nearly broke him, not in weakness but in love, because this was his mission now, this was his reason to endure the mud, the insults, the aching joints, and he pressed the paper to his lips, whispering into the silence, "I'll make you proud, baby girl," before tucking it safely away and staring at the ceiling, where memories of past battles flickered like ghosts in the shadows. But unlike ghosts, Ellie was real, and she needed him to be more than a survivor, she needed him to be a symbol of resilience, So when morning broke with the sharp blast of a whistle and the first rays of sunlight pierced the barracks windows, Jake rose immediately, his body sore but his mind unshaken, and as the day dragged them through push-ups in the mud, burpees until their arms gave out, and crawling through gravel that bit into skin, Jake was slower than the fastest, yes, but he was unrelenting. Every time his muscles trembled he pushed again, every time his lungs screamed he kept breathing, every time sweat blurred his vision he blinked it away, and though jeers still came, fewer now, some began to notice that the old man never quit, never cursed, never gave less than everything he had, and at the edges of the training field the female commander observed, her sharp eyes cataloging every detail, and while the recruits saw only an aging single dad they could mock, she saw scars on his arms that spoke of battles fought long before this, she saw discipline that did not break under laughter, and she saw a man who carried more than just his own weight, though for now she said nothing, watching silently as Jake Thompson, mocked, ridiculed, underestimated, endured every blow without striking back, because Jake knew something none of them did. Heroes are not built in moments of applause, they are built in moments of fire, in mud, in silence, in sacrifice, and as the sun set on that first grueling day of boot camp, while the young recruits groaned in their bunks and some even cried quietly from blisters and bruises, Jake sat again in the dim light, boots polished, Ellie's drawing pressed against his chest, steady, patient, knowing that tomorrow would bring more laughter, more doubt, more pain, but also knowing that he had already survived worse, and that one day, when the truth inked on his back was revealed, their laughter would die, respect would replace mockery, and his daughter would know beyond any doubt that her daddy was not just strong in her drawings, but strong in life, unbroken, unstoppable, forged like steel in fire.